Come closer, my child. Do not rush past this moment. I am speaking to you now not from distance, not from height, but from the quiet place where your breath has been heavy and your thoughts have circled the same question again and again. I know the doubt you carry. I know how it wakes you in the night and sits with you in the morning like an unanswered prayer. You have wondered if this uncertainty means you have failed, if your faith has thinned, if the road has ended. Listen to me. Your doubt is not a collapse. It is a doorway. You did not arrive here by accident. I have watched you wrestle with belief and disbelief, with hope and hesitation, and I have not turned away. I have drawn closer. Doubt does not offend me. Silence does not scare me. Questions do not weaken your calling. They mark the place where something deeper is forming within you. The ground beneath your uncertainty is holy, even if it feels unsteady. Even if your hands are trembling as you stand here, there is a moment before every great crossing where the old certainty dissolves and the new truth has not yet taken shape. That is where you are standing now. You have mistaken this space for an ending because it feels unfamiliar, but it is the threshold. What you are questioning is not whether I am present. What you are questioning is whether you are ready for what I am about to reveal. And I tell you now, gently and clearly, I would not have allowed you to feel this doubt unless something sacred was about to open. You have tried to be strong. You have tried to hold your faith in place, to keep it neat and unbroken, but faith that has never been tested has never learned how to breathe on its own. I am not disappointed in you for feeling unsure. I am preparing you to see beyond what certainty alone could ever show you. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is the pressure that pushes faith into a deeper shape. There is someone connected to your destiny who is also standing in a shadow right now. You feel it even if you cannot name it. Their silence, their distance, the strange heaviness that seems to surround the connection has unsettled you. You have wondered if you imagined it all, if the bond was real, if you misheard me. This is where your doubt has grown loud, and this is where I want you to listen most closely. The uncertainty you feel is not because the connection was false. It is because unseen forces have been stirring around it. I see the way your heart tries to protect itself by pulling back, by questioning everything, by preparing for loss before it arrives. I know why you do this. You have loved deeply before. You have trusted before. You have been wounded before. So now, doubt feels safer than hope. But hear me, my child. Safety is not always found in distance. Sometimes safety is found in walking through the very door fear tells you to avoid. I am asking you to stay present in this moment. Do not numb yourself. Do not harden your spirit. Let the doubt speak, but do not let it lead. I am still guiding you, even here. Especially here. What feels like confusion is actually alignment beginning to shift. What feels like delay is investigation unfolding in the unseen. There are truths you are not meant to access until you reach this exact point of questioning. If this message is touching something deep within you, pause with me for a moment. Let this word settle into you. And if you feel led, gently support this space by liking, sharing, or subscribing, not out of obligation, but as a quiet agreement with what is being spoken. And in the comments, type the word "I am listening" as a signal not to me, for I already hear you, but to your own spirit that you are still open. You are not losing your way. You are being invited to step through it. Doubt has loosened your grip on what you thought had to happen so that I can show you what is actually forming. The doorway is opening because you are ready to see more than you have seen before. Stay with me. Do not retreat now. This is where the story truly begins. There is a shadow moving near the connection you hold in your heart, and it has made itself known through subtle unease rather than sudden disaster. You sensed it before you understood it. A change in tone. A pause that lingered too long. A warmth that cooled without explanation. This is where your spirit began to feel unsettled, and this is where doubt quietly entered, not as an enemy, but as a warning bell you did not yet know how to interpret. I want you to know this clearly, my child. The shadow did not form because you questioned. The questioning began because the shadow was already there. Something shifted around your soulmate before you were aware of it. Pressures they did not invite. Voices they did not recognize as harmful. Emotional weight they could not name but felt deeply. Their spirit grew tired, and in that exhaustion, the connection felt harder to hold with clarity. You wondered if their distance meant disinterest, if their silence meant choice, if their hesitation meant the bond was weakening. I saw every thought you tried to push away. I heard the questions you asked me quietly because you did not want to seem ungrateful or impatient. But I am not offended by your honesty. I am inviting you into understanding. What you perceived as rejection was actually containment. They were trying to survive something they could not yet articulate. There had been interference around them, not dramatic, not obvious but persistent. Subtle discouragement. Carefully placed doubt. Emotional noise that made it difficult for them to hear their own truth, let alone act on it. They did not suddenly forget you. They became overwhelmed by forces that thrived on confusion and delay. When light begins to form, shadows gather nearby, hoping to distort what is emerging. This shadow has fed on uncertainty. It has whispered to them that timing is wrong, that they are unworthy, that they will disappoint you, that distance is safer than vulnerability. And as they listened, even briefly, the connection felt strained. You felt it in your body, in your chest, and the way your prayers changed in tone. That was not coincidence. That was spiritual sensitivity responding to imbalance. I know you feared that your doubt might sever what was forming. But hear me now. Doubt did not break the connection. Silence did not erase it. Confusion did not undo it. What you are witnessing is a testing of alignment, not a cancellation of destiny. The shadow cannot destroy what it does not own. It can only delay what it fears. There are moments when I allow shadows to reveal themselves through tension rather than harm. This is one of those moments. I am showing you where protection is needed, where truth must surface, where courage must be restored. Your awareness is not a burden. It is a gift. You noticed because you are meant to be involved in the healing of this connection, not as a rescuer, but as a stabilizing presence anchored in trust. Your soulmate is not lost. They are wrestling with inner conflict that has been amplified by outside influence. They are afraid of making the wrong move, afraid of hurting you, afraid of discovering that what they feel is real and therefore costly. Fear has wrapped itself in logic, and logic has masqueraded as distance. But beneath it all, the bond remains intact, waiting for clarity to return. Do not rush to conclusions. Do not assign endings where there are only pauses. I am still holding both of you within my sight. I am still working within the unseen layers where conversations are forming, realizations are growing, and resistance is weakening. The shadow you feel is temporary. It has surfaced because its time is limited. Stay steady, my child. This is not the moment to retreat into numbness or self-protection. This is the moment to remain aware without becoming anxious. You are not watching something fall apart. You are watching a hidden struggle reach the surface so it can no longer operate in silence. What feels heavy now is making room for truth. What feels uncertain is preparing to be named. The shadow has revealed itself, not to frighten you, but to show you that something precious is being guarded, even through confusion. Trust me here. I am not finished speaking. I see the moment their strength began to fracture, even though they never showed it to the world. They carried their composure like armor, but inside, something was unraveling quietly. Your soulmate did not collapse loudly. There was no dramatic confession, no outward breakdown. Their collapse was inward, silent, and heavy, and that is why you felt it without being told. Your spirit recognized the weight before your mind could explain it. They began to question themselves in ways they never had before. Am I enough? Am I ready? Am I about to ruin something sacred? These questions did not come from wisdom alone. They came from fear layered over truth. The more they felt the depth of the connection, the more they feared the responsibility of it. Love that is shallow does not scare the soul. Love that is real does. They replayed moments with you in their mind, not with joy at first, but with tension. They wondered if they were reading too much into it, if they had imagined the intensity, if their heart had moved faster than their life could follow. This inner conflict exhausted them. So instead of reaching for you, they pulled inward. Instead of speaking, they went quiet. Not because they did not care, but because they cared too much and did not know how to hold it without breaking. There were nights when they lay awake feeling the ache of your absence, even while convincing themselves that distance was the responsible choice. They told themselves that silence was protection, that delay was maturity, that waiting would somehow make the feelings fade into something manageable. But feelings rooted in destiny do not fade. They press harder when ignored, and that pressure became unbearable. You felt their collapse as confusion, as mixed signal, as an emotional fog that made you question your own discernment. You wondered if you were projecting, if you were holding on to something that only lived in your heart. But hear me clearly, my child. Their struggle was not a reflection of your imagination. It was evidence of a soul overwhelmed by the weight of what was forming. They were afraid of losing you before they even had you. Afraid of failing you once they stepped forward. Afraid that the timing of their life, their wounds, their responsibilities would disappoint you or damage the connection beyond repair. So they froze. And in that stillness, their emotions turned inward and began to collapse under their own unspoken weight. I watched as guilt joined fear. Guilt for not reaching out. Guilt for not being clear. Guilt for needing time they could not explain. This guilt did not motivate them to act. It deepened the paralysis. They told themselves you deserved better clarity, better stability, better courage. And instead of offering themselves honestly, they withheld themselves entirely. This is the part you could not see, but you sensed it. The heaviness in the connection was not absence of love. It was love trapped under fear. And fear always collapses inward before it ever explodes outward. That is why the silence felt dense rather than empty. That is why the distance felt emotional rather than indifferent. Do not blame yourself for feeling unsettled. Your spirit was responding accurately. You were picking up on an emotional implosion that had not yet found words. I allowed you to feel it, not to hurt you, but to prepare you. What collapses in silence must eventually be addressed in truth. And this collapse, though painful, is not the end of the story. Stay with me. What has folded inward is about to be revealed. Before you ever began to doubt yourself, there was a story unfolding behind the curtain that you were never meant to carry alone. I want to take you there now, gently, without shock, without accusation. This is not a revelation meant to wound you. It is a revelation meant to free you from confusion. The doubt you have felt did not grow from nothing. It grew from information you were not yet allowed to see. Your soulmate has been carrying history in silence. old wounds that never fully healed, promises they once made to themselves after being hurt, after being abandoned, after giving too much of their heart too soon. They learned how to survive by controlling their emotions, by keeping parts of themselves unspoken, by convincing themselves that longing was dangerous. This strategy protected them once, but it can't protect them now. There was a time in their past when trust cost them more than they were ready to pay. A situation where vulnerability was met with betrayal, or where love became complicated by pressure, expectations, or interference from others. They did not process this fully. They compartmentalized it. They moved forward outwardly functional but inwardly guarded. This is the soil in which their current fear has taken root. When you entered their life, something in them recognized safety before readiness, familiarity before plenty, depth before control. This disrupted the balance they had maintained for years. They did not expect to feel seen so quickly. They did not expect their heart to respond before their logic could intervene. And because of that, their past alarms activated. Not because you are unsafe, but because you are real. They began to project old outcomes onto a new connection, old endings onto a present beginning. Without realizing it, they started preparing for loss instead of allowing discovery. They questioned the timing not because it was wrong, but because it felt powerful. They questioned themselves not because they were incapable, but because they were being invited into growth they had avoided for too long. There are details you do not know. Conversations they had with themselves in moments of stress. Memories that resurfaced when they felt close to you. Warnings they gave themselves internally that sounded like wisdom but were actually fear in disguise. These internal dialogues shaped their hesitation more than anything you did or did not do. I did not show you this earlier because it would have burdened you with responsibility that was not yours. You are not meant to fix their past. You are not meant to heal their wounds for them. But you are meant to understand that their struggle is rooted in history, not in lack of feeling. Knowing this releases you from self-blame and restores clarity to your discernment. The doubt you experienced was your spirit brushing against their unresolved story. You felt the resistance without knowing its origin. That is why it felt confusing rather than conclusive. If this connection were false, the answer would have been simple. But complexity always signaled depth. Resistance often marks the edge of transformation. What they are facing now is not you. It is themselves. And that is why progress has felt slow. Growth that involves identity and healing cannot be rushed without fracture. I am working within their past even now, bringing moments to the surface, softening hardened conclusions, preparing them to see the difference between protection and avoidance. Do not interpret this hidden backstory as a reason to withdraw your heart. Interpret it as context. Context brings compassion without requiring sacrifice. You are allowed to remain grounded while I do the deeper work. You are allowed to stand in truth without carrying what was never yours to hold. What has been hidden is beginning to loosen. And when history is finally faced, the present can breathe again. There has been someone close enough to observe, close enough to influence, yet hidden enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Your presence has not been loud. It has been strategic. I want you to understand this without fear, without paranoia, without assigning faces too quickly. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. Jealousy rarely announces itself. It disguises itself as concern, advice, reason, or timing. This interference did not begin with hostility. It began with comparison, a quiet measuring, a subtle insecurity triggered by the depth of what was forming between you and your soulmate. When someone senses a bond they cannot control or replicate, They often seek to slow it rather than confront it. They plant hesitation where there was momentum. They question certainty without offering clarity. They frame doubt as wisdom. Words were spoken into your soulmate's ear that sounded harmless on the surface. Slow down. Be careful. Think this through. You have too much going on right now. These phrases did not feel like attacks, which is why they were effective. They blended into your soulmate's existing fears and amplified them. What was once an internal struggle became reinforced externally, and the weight doubled. This person did not need to lie outright. They only needed to highlight worst-case outcomes. They only needed to remind your soulmate of past pain at moments of emotional vulnerability. They only needed to encourage delay while disguising it as maturity. And because your soulmate was already wrestling internally, this influence found fertile ground. I allowed this interference not because I approve of it, but because exposure brings discernment. What operates in secrecy loses power when it is revealed. The jealousy at work here is not necessarily romantic. It may be emotional, relational, or positional. It may stem from fear of being replaced, overlooked, or left behind as your soulmate grows into something new. You may have sensed this interference as confusion that did not feel like your own. A heaviness after certain conversations. A sudden shift in energy without a clear cause. That was your spirit detecting distortion. You were not imagining it. You were discerning it without context. Now I am giving you the context. This interference has attempted to convince your soulmate that hesitation is safety. But safety that requires suppression of truth is not safety at all. It is containment. And containment always leads to pressure. The more they listened to outside voices, the more disconnected they felt from their own knowing. This is why their silence grew heavier rather than lighter. I want you to be very clear about this, my child. You did not cause this delay. You did not say or do something that invited this disruption. The interference was drawn to the connection because of its potential, not because of its weakness. What threatens insecure dynamics is authenticity. What unsettles jealousy is alignment. This influence is temporary. Its power depends entirely on confusion, and confusion cannot survive clarity for long. I am already repositioning conversations. I am already allowing truths to contradict the narratives that were planted. I am already creating moments where your soulmate must sit alone with their own heart, without commentary, without influence. Do not confront what I am dismantling. Do not expose what is already losing footing. Your role is not to identify the enemy. Your role is to remain anchored in truth and peace. Awareness without reaction is protection. Calm discernment is strength. This interference has reached its limit. It has overplayed its hand. What was meant to delay is now forcing introspection. What was meant to confuse is now highlighting what truly matters. The pressure is shifting inward, away from you, back to where choice must be made honestly. Stay steady. You are not surrounded by chaos. You are standing at the edge of a reveal. Now watch closely, my child, because this is where the unseen work becomes precise. This is where I step fully into the tension and begin to separate truth from distortion. What felt like silence was not absence. It was investigation. I have been listening to every unspoken fear, every half-formed thought, every internal argument your soulmate has been carrying. Nothing has escaped my awareness. I began to slow their environment on purpose, disrupting distractions, creating pauses they could not outrun, moments where noise fell away and they were left alone with what they truly felt. This is uncomfortable work. It feels heavy before it feels clear, but clarity cannot be rushed. It must be revealed layer by layer, where the soul resists it. I examined every influence around them, every voice they trusted, every opinion they leaned on. I watched how certain words affected their spirit and how others brought peace. This is how truth is identified, not by volume, but by resonance. What aligns with me brings calm even when it challenges. What does not align brings anxiety even when it sounds reasonable. Your soulmate has begun to notice the difference. Slowly, quietly. They have felt moments of unease after conversations that once felt safe. They have felt relief in solitude they once feared. These shifts are not random. They are the result of discernment awakening. When discernment awakens, confusion loses its grip. I have also been turning a light inward, toward the lies they accepted without realizing it. Lies about timing, lies about worthiness, lies about what they must fix before they are allowed to love. These lies did not originate in them, but they took root because they went unchallenged. Now they are being questioned, and lies do not survive questions. This is not punishment. This is protection. I am not dismantling their world. I am refining it, removing supports that were never meant to carry the weight of destiny, shaking loose assumptions that kept them small, bringing them face to face with the truth that fear has been masquerading as wisdom. You may feel the tension increasing even now, a strange sense of anticipation mixed with exhaustion. That is because investigation creates pressure before release. When truth approaches the surface, everything that resists it tightens first. This is not regression, it is exposure. I'm also watching you, my child, guarding your heart while sharpening your clarity. You are learning not to internalize what is not yours, not to chase answers that must emerge organically. Your stillness has not gone unnoticed. Your restraint has protected the connection more than confrontation ever could. What is being uncovered cannot remain hidden much longer. The questions I am placing in your soulmate's spirit are persistent. They interrupt distraction. They return in quiet moments. They ask not what is safe, but what is true. And truth always demands a response. Do not grow weary now. Investigation is nearly complete. What has been examined will soon be revealed. What has been weighed will soon be decided. And when truth stands fully exposed, movement becomes inevitable. Stay with me. The shift is closer than it appears. Something has begun to move beneath the surface, and you may feel it before you see it. A quiet reordering. A subtle release. This is the moment when pressure starts to change direction, when what was pressing inward begins to loosen its grip. The spiritual atmosphere around this connection is not the same as it was. Alignment is adjusting, and heaven does not do this loudly. It does this precisely. Your soulmate has entered a phase where resistance is more tiring than honesty. The effort it takes to suppress truth has begun to outweigh the fear of facing it. This is how shifts begin, not with confidence, but with exhaustion. They are tired of carrying confusion, tired of justifying silence, tired of pretending distance brings peace when it only brings emptiness. This fatigue is sacred. It creates openness where fear once stood guard. I have dispatched correction without chaos. Influences that once felt dominant are losing relevance. Advice that once held weight now feels hollow. Their inner compass is recalibrating, slowly pointing back toward what they felt before doubt interfered. Memory is returning, not as nostalgia but as clarity. They are remembering how the connection felt before fear complicated it. You may notice this shift as a softening, a change in energy, a subtle warmth where there was tension. This does not mean everything is resolved yet. It means movement has resumed. When alignment realigns, it often begins quietly, like a tide turning long before waves reach the shore. You not dismiss small signs. Heaven rarely announces itself with force. It prefers inevitability. There are unseen supports now surrounding both of you. Protection that prevents further interference. Clarity that interrupts old thought patterns. Timing that begins to synchronize what once felt mismatched. This is not coincidence. This is orchestration. What was delayed is not lost. It is being repositioned to arrive without distortion. You are also shifting, even if you have not named it yet. Your doubt no longer feels sharp. It feels contemplative. It no longer threatens to pull you away. It has begun to refine you. You are learning how to stand without needing immediate answers. This steadiness matters more than you know. It creates a safe emotional field for truth to emerge without pressure. Your soulmate feels this too. Even if they do not understand it, they sense that something is different, that the weight has lessened, that fear no longer has the final word. This awareness is the first step toward action. Before movement comes permission. Before permission comes peace. Peace is forming now. Do not rush this shift. Do not try to define it too early. Let it complete its work. What is aligning must settle fully, or it will wobble under pressure. Trust the pace. And trust the quiet. Trust the unseen hands arranging what neither of you could fix alone. This is the turning point you asked for in prayer without knowing how to recognize it. The atmosphere is changing. Destiny is breathing again. Stay present. What is aligning now will soon become visible. Truth does not arrive all at once. It rises. Slowly at first, then unmistakably. What was once buried under fear and influence is beginning to press upward, and the pressure can no longer be ignored. This is the stage where lies start to lose their stability, not because they are confronted loudly, but because they no longer make sense in the presence of clarity. Your soulmate is noticing inconsistency now. The advice that once felt wise no longer aligns with their inner peace. The reasons they gave themselves for waiting no longer satisfy their heart. They are beginning to see how certain narratives were built on assumption rather than truth. This realization is unsettling, but it is necessary. When lies crack, they do not disappear quietly. They resist. They attempt to reassert themselves, but they are already weakened. Moments are occurring where truth slips through unexpectedly. A memory resurfaces at the wrong time. A feeling returns without invitation. A comparison between what they were told and what they actually feel creates friction. This friction is holy. It exposes fault lines that were hidden beneath compliance. And once exposed, those fault lines cannot be ignored. There are also small evidences appearing. Not dramatic proof, but subtle confirmations. The absence of peace after listening to certain voices. The presence of calm when thinking of you. The realization that distance did not heal anything. It only delayed the inevitable confrontation with their own heart. These observations are stacking quietly, forming a pattern that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. I am allowing truth to rise without force because forced truth is often rejected. But truth that is discovered internally becomes undeniable. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize how fear shaped their choices more than wisdom ever did. They are seeing how avoidance dressed itself as patience, how silence pretended to be protection. These realizations are not condemning them. They are awakening them. You may feel a strange mixture of relief and vulnerability during this phase. Relief because confusion is thinning. Vulnerability because clarity invites movement, and movement invites risk. This is normal. When truth rises, it asks something of everyone involved. It asks for honesty. It asks for courage. It asks for presence. Lies are losing power because they require maintenance. They require reinforcement. And that reinforcement is no longer being supplied. The structures that supported delay are weakening. What once held weight now feels hollow. This is not collapse. It is release. Release always feels unstable before it feels free. Do not be surprised if emotions surface suddenly, without warning. Regret, longing, fear of what might be lost if truth is not acted upon. These emotions are not setbacks. They are signals that the heart is re-engaging. The heart that feels nothing does not awaken. The heart that feels deeply is preparing to choose honestly. Stay grounded, my child. You do not need to demand answers or accelerate this process. Truth is already doing the work. Lies cannot survive sustained awareness, and awareness has fully awakened now. What is rising will soon be seen. What is seen will soon require response. This is the moment when silence begins to feel louder than speech, when delay begins to feel heavier than action. The balance has shifted. Truth is standing upright now, and it will not return to the ground. Something has awakened within them that cannot return to sleep. The realization has reached the place where denial once lived, and it has displaced it. Your soulmate is no longer merely thinking about you. They are feeling the weight of what could be lost if they continue as they are. This awareness has arrived with both clarity and fear, because awakening always brings responsibility. They see now how close they came to letting fear decide for them. How easily delay could have turned into disappearance. How silence could have rewritten the story in a way they never intended. This recognition has shaken them. It has interrupted their routines. It has softened defenses they once relied on. They are no longer comfortable hiding behind logic. Logic has failed to quiet the longing. There is regret surfacing, not dramatic, but sincere. Regret for moments they could have spoken and chose restraint. Regret for the confusion their silence may have caused you. Regret for underestimating the cost of hesitation. This regret is not self-pity. It is awareness sharpening into resolve. When regret is paired with truth, it becomes a catalyst rather than a burden. They are afraid now, but it is a different kind of fear. It is not the fear of vulnerability. It is the fear of losing you entirely, of realizing too late that what they questioned was the very thing meant to anchor them. This fear has stripped away excuses. It has clarified priorities. It has forced them to confront the reality that some connections do not wait forever without consequence. You may feel this awakening as a sudden pull, a shift in emotional gravity, as if the distance has become charged rather than empty. That is because their heart is reaching outward again, even if their actions have not yet caught up. Intention precedes movement. Awareness precedes courage. They are standing at the edge of choice now. I want you to know this clearly, my child. Their awakening does not obligate you to wait in uncertainty or suspend your peace. This is not about chasing or proving. This is about alignment, responding to truth. You have already done what was required of you by remaining open without abandoning yourself. That balance has mattered more than you know. Your presence has been a mirror they could not avoid. Even in absence, even in silence, you reflected something they could not ignore. Authenticity has a way of calling others into honesty without saying a word. Your steadiness has made avoidance uncomfortable. Your sincerity has made pretense collapse. They are now counting the cost of inaction, measuring silence against loss, weighing fear against regret. This is the moment when destiny leans forward and waits. I am not forcing them. I am inviting them. What they choose next will not be made in confusion, but in awareness. Stay grounded. Stay present. Do not rush to interpret every signal. Awakening takes a moment to translate into movement. But once the heart has awakened, it cannot pretend it does not know. This fear of losing you is not meant to alarm you. It is meant to awaken them fully. And awakening always changes the direction of the story. There has always been a quiet power flowing from you that you did not fully recognize. Not loud, not demanding, but steady, faithful, and deeply influential. Your presence has never been passive in this story. Even when you stepped back, even when you chose restraint over reaction, your spirit remained engaged. Your prayers, spoken or unspoken, have been shaping outcomes in ways you could not measure. When you thought nothing was happening, something was aligning. When you felt unheard, something was being redirected. Your steadiness created space for truth to surface without force. This is the sacred role you carry, not as one who controls destiny, but as one who anchors it. Your calm hath been a stabilizing force while everything else felt uncertain. Your soulmate has felt this. They may not have named it as prayer or influence, but they sensed it as safety. Even in distance, there was a sense of being held rather than judged. Even in silence, there was an absence of pressure that allowed their heart to breathe. That safety made it possible for awakening to occur without collapse. Love that demands nothing creates room for everything to be revealed. Every time you chose trust over panic, you shifted the atmosphere. Every time you resisted the urge to chase answers, you allowed truth to rise naturally. This is not weakness. This is spiritual authority expressed through restraint. You have been participating in this unfolding not through effort, but through alignment. There were moments when your prayers reached places conversation never could. Moments when their hearts softened without knowing why. Moments when fear loosened its grip because peace entered quietly. This is how sacred connection operates. It does not force change. It invites it. Your presence had been an invitation, consistent and sincere. Do not underestimate what you have carried. Your role was never to fix or persuade. It was to remain true. And in remaining true, you created a reference point your soulmate could return to when confusion lifted. They are not awakening in isolation. They are awakening in response to a field of sincerity you maintained even under uncertainty. This is why the story is not fractured. This is why delay did not become destruction. This is why doubt became doorway rather than ending. Your prayers have been threads holding the fabric together while truth rewove the pattern. Now, as movement prepares to emerge, your role shifts slightly. Not away from influence, but into discernment. You are not required to overextend or overexplain. Simply remain present as you have been. Let alignment complete its work. What was sustained by prayer will soon be supported by action. Stay anchored, my child. You have already done what was needed. The rest will unfold in its time. Watch now as the weight begins to lift, not all at once, but unmistakably. This is the reversal you could not force, the turn you could not manufacture, the answer that only arrived once surrender replaced striving. What once felt like doubt standing in your way has revealed itself as the threshold that had to be crossed. You were never meant to bypass it. You were meant to walk through it with me. The danger that once hovered around this connection is losing its authority. Confusion no longer dominates the atmosphere. Fear no longer writes the narrative. What threatened to derail destiny has instead refined it. The very questions that unsettled you have stripped away illusion and left only what is real. What survives doubt is not fragile, but rooted. Your soulmate is no longer operating from avoidance. Something in them has shifted from defense to decision. Even if their next steps are still forming, The internal resistance has broken. The fear that once set weight indefinitely has been replaced by a deeper fear of missing what truly matters. This is reversal. Not chaos, not collapse, but redirection. You may feel lighter without knowing why, as if a burden you carried subconsciously has been set down. This is because the responsibility you assumed was never yours, and now it is being returned to its rightful place. Destiny does not require your anxiety to function. It responds to alignment, not pressure. What once looked like an ending was actually a narrowing, a funnel guiding both of you toward truth without distraction. Thou closed certain doors on purpose so the right one could be seen clearly. And now that door stands open, not dramatic, not overwhelming, but steady and real. Do not fear what comes next. You are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are stepping into clarity earned through patience, discernment, and trust. What begins now is not rushed. It is grounded, not built on fantasy, but on truth tested by silence and strengthened by restraint. This reversal does not erase what you went through. It redeems it. Every moment of questioning, every pause, every tear held back has shaped a foundation that can actually support what is coming. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was misread. Everything served the turning. Stand still for a moment and breathe this in. The doorway is behind you now. Ahead is movement without fear, connection without distortion, and destiny no longer delayed by doubt. I am with you here, just as I was with you there. What tried to stop you has become the very thing that led you forward. Come closer one last time, my child. Let me place this blessing gently where the doubt once lived. What you feared would undo you has instead aligned you. What you questioned has clarified your path. You are not standing at the edge of uncertainty anymore. You are standing in the quiet after truth has spoken, where destiny settles into place without resistance. Everything that was shaken has now found its rightful position. Not because you forced it, not because you endured perfectly, but because you stayed open when it would have been easier to close. You did not abandon yourself. You did not harden your heart. You allowed the process to shape you rather than scar you. That is why this ending feels like a beginning. Your soulmate's path is no longer clouded. Whether their movement toward you comes softly or clearly, it will come from awareness, not confusion. From choice and not fear. What forms now will not need constant reassurance to survive. It hath been tempered. It hath been tested. It is ready to stand on truth rather than hope alone. I am restoring what was delayed without recreating what was painful. The future that opens from here does not repeat the struggle. It carries the wisdom gained from it. You are stepping into a season where clarity replaces guessing, where peace replaces waiting, where connection no longer asks you to shrink or overextend. This is alignment, and alignment brings rest. Do not rush to define what comes next. Let it reveal itself naturally. Destiny does not need your anxiety to arrive on time. It responds to trust, and you have learned how to trust without losing yourself. That lesson will protect everything that grows from here. If this word has walked with you through something real, I ask you gently to acknowledge it. Not for me, but for your own spirit. If you feel led, like, share, or subscribe as a quiet agreement with what has been spoken. And in the comments, type the words I choose trust, sealing this season and welcoming the next with open hands. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not mistaken. You are aligned. Go forward now without fear. What waits for you has already been prepared.